What does it take to transform a neighborhood, not just physically, but spiritually and sustainably? Today on the Better Living Interest channel, we're joined by a leader whose work answers that question every day. He's a community builder, environmental visionary, and advocate for sustainable urban renewal. Tendaji Yauku. Tendaji's work is more than development. It's about healing communities and building equity from the ground up. So let's get into it. Tendaji, thank
I'm
you for
glad to
joining
be
us
here.
today. Let's begin at the root. Thank you, thank you. Let's begin at the root. Where did your passion for environmental justice and community development start?
Uh, my work is deeply rooted as we both come from the Bronx, the boogie down, and just coming up in the Bronx. Most people don't know, but most of the neighborhoods in the Bronx have some of the poorest congressional districts, and we're like the food distribution hub of New York City. So all the diesel trucks delivering food come through our boroughs, and highways and different other sources of pollution. Just seeing all of that and growing up in a very in hard communities, it just inspired me to want to do something about that. So once I came to Buffalo to study urban planning and really get to know people throughout the region, I just hit the ground running.
Wow, that's what's up, man. Definitely and inspiring. And speaking of the Bronx to Buffalo, there is a lot of economic and environmental injustice in both of those places, especially for strategically marginalized communities of color. It definitely coincides with the mission. Speaking of, was there a defining moment that shaped your mission, your purpose? That you could point to and you say, okay, me being born here, but was there like a specific moment or accumulation of things that led you to do this work that you're doing? Because you could have been anything and doing anything, anywhere, right? But you chose to come to Buffalo to do this work here. Why? Where did this come from? How did this shape you? That moment.
I think it's really interesting because I can't really look at any one moment that would define what sparked my passion for doing this work. Um, but just seeing all the different issues that existed within my own community and then moving to the east side of Buffalo and seeing how both places have many of the same issues. Um, as like a person that's like deeply rooted in a community, I was raised by a village of people in the Bronx, and wanting to help and serve has just been a part of who I am as a person, and really just understanding what I'm good at and how what I can bring to a community or what I can do to help tackle many of these issues. I came at it from an environmental and community building perspective, being able to go out into the community, get people, galvanize them, and catalyze change within our communities.
Nice. And what brought you here to Buffalo? How did you get from the Bronx to Buffalo specifically?
Um, I didn't really know what I wanted to study in school. I My first major was game design, and I really like game design, but I didn't really want to make games for the rest of my life. I wanted to be deep rooted in what brought me up and be able to affect change. So I switched to renewable energy. I studied that in central New York for a couple of years. But I really wanted to study, and I've always been fascinated by cities, how different towns and places have been developed, and why certain decisions are being made in certain communities. When I saw that the University of Buffalo had a great urban planning program, I took it as a no-brainer to move to Buffalo and my journey.
So yeah, that 6.5 hour drive. For those that are not aware, Buffalo, New York is very far from New York City. It's all in the same state, but it's two different worlds. We love all of New York equally, so this is a great place, and we're happy to be doing this work. And shout out to UB too, and all the colleges in this area in Buffalo that have brought so much talent to this area and are supporting it. And that's really powerful, especially for the people that live here and from here to get outside perspectives that want to invest and plant roots here in Buffalo. It's really amazing. Question I have for you. Your name has such meaning. Can you share a little bit about this, its significance and how it connects to the work that you're
Yeah,
doing?
I was originally born with an American name. My mother named me Terrence, and my I got my father's last name Johnson. But really trying to understand what the roots are of my lineage and my ancestors, and seeing how I was given a European name because that's how African Americans or Black people in the U.S. assimilate into the country. I really wanted a name that represented not only my culture but who I was as a person. Um, my mom named all of her kids with T's because her name is Talani. So she did Terrell, Terrence, Travis, and Tiana. So I didn't want to disrespect the T's, so I kept it in the T's. But I renamed myself Tendaji, which means someone who gets things done in Swahili, deeply rooted within different African cultures. But also my middle name, Creative, someone who creates and works for others to build things, and then my last name, Yauku, in just manifesting greatness for myself and for the future of the work that I'm doing, of hopefully the family that I'm able to create. But I really wanted to incorporate Swahili and incorporate different elements of who I am into a new identity that um, I'm confident in and helps me do this work every day.
Yeah, no, that's powerful, man. Words are powerful. And when you're doing intentional work like what you're doing in the community, you want to make sure that you're doing it with a purpose and to have a name, a brand that represents that, I think that's pretty dope. So yeah, shout outs to you in that. Any reason in specific to Swahili, or could it, or would it, you were just
When I trace back my ancestry, most of it came back African. So 90% was African, and then from the slave trade, I got 10% European. But just understanding those African roots, I really wanted to use a African language that was semi-universal. So I believe about 25 million people across the continent use that language. So just as a way of connecting, being able to root my name in something substantial.
that's what's up. That's what's up. Appreciate that. Next, I want to follow up with you've led and supported several community based sustainable projects. You can see it all on his LinkedIn, and we're going to post his LinkedIn account in the description below. Can you describe one that you feel really embodies your approach to equitable development?
About a year ago, I founded a cooperative, a workers' cooperative and community organization called East Side Stewards. We are dedicated to transforming Buffalo's East Side into a thriving and sustainable community. And we do that by revitalizing green spaces, transforming vacant lots, wanting to redevelop on those lots for community needs like sustainable housing, renewable energy systems, workforce development. We also teach environmental education and just work with the community to help build a foundation for equitable resource distribution and being able to use those resources to build with one another, but also have healthy, thriving communities.
Nice. Dope. And in the communities that you've worked in, we'll talk specifically about the East Side because a lot of your work right now is primarily based in that area. What are some of the unseen environmental challenges that often go overlooked?
Yeah, I think especially on the east side, we can particularly look at how the Kensington Expressway, built over 60 years ago, has caused irreparable damage to residents that live throughout the corridor with heart disease, respiratory illnesses like asthma, bronchitis, different forms of cancers that have come from people breathing in all of the emissions that come from the expressway, but also communities that live in close proximity to industrial areas like the Delavan Grider community. They have dozens of factories that were zoned right across the street from where people live. And many of those people face similar issues with, chronic illnesses. And I think as an organization wanting to help solve many of these issues, it's important that we understand the history of the East Side, but also what do people who were born and raised in Buffalo think about how we can tackle some of these issues as well.
Powerful. And there's some overlap too, right? You discussed being born and raised in the Bronx, and we all know the infamous Bruckner Expressway and the Cross Bronx Expressway. So those massive highways really rampaged through communities that were thriving, and they had businesses, it's particularly for the natives that were living there. So it was typically blacks and Latinos that were in these neighborhoods. And once these expressways, these massive transit outlets connecting from the suburbs even to outer states, Connecticut, Massachusetts, and then Buffalo to the Amherst, to the North Tonawanda, your suburbs, to downtown Buffalo. These highways just destroyed communities. I definitely see that there was a trend in that period of time, and then now there's a trend to try to fix that. But I feel we just need to learn from our mistakes as a historical approach and how to work on that to make it better. And I'm glad to see that there is a lot of energy, some financial resources, a lot of attention that is being brought to the highway, to your point, and to have community activists, environmentalist groups that you're, such as yourself, and that you're leading with others in the community. It's really good that the people are finally getting their voice heard to make sure that they're building a project that's not just going to be fair for one group, but it's going to be equitable for everyone, including the ones that are currently living there now. So yeah, kudos to you for that, man, for sure. How do you balance innovation with tradition when working with black and brown communities?
Really interesting question. Um, I think, especially working in communities of color, we tend to lean on tradition heavily. And I think that is important to understand the people that have come before us and how they have successfully been able to organize this work, like the Black Panthers and so many other advocacy organizations and grassroots groups. Um, but it's also important for us to, I think a trend that I see is that a lot of older folks don't typically listen to young people or take the work that we're doing seriously. So I think it's important, especially for us as an organization, to bridge the gap between older generation and younger generations, and ensuring that they can both hear each other and we can implement solutions that are both novel as well as familiar. Because without the people, the input of the people who are going to be inheriting these issues, I don't think we're going to be doing them justice in a way in which we're organizing and building community with one another.
Like that, definitely like that approach. Seeking counsel, right? Seek wise counsel. Let's talk about your methodology. What tools, frameworks, or systems do you rely on to keep your work grounded and effective?
Through my experience as a community builder, I've definitely been able to learn from past movement building work, and have participated in different justice oriented trainings throughout the work that I've been doing. But an approach that I specifically take is definitely a holistic approach. I think that New York, whether you're in New York City or in Buffalo, organizations typically oftentimes stay siloed. So if we're addressing housing, we're a housing organization. If we're addressing food and hosting food justice campaigns, we're a food justice organization. Or if they're focusing on renewable energy, it's just singularly focused on different issues. And I think that does a disservice to the community because when people are trying to access all the different resources they need for not only survival but to thrive, they need those different areas or aspects of their life to communicate with one another. So I think that within the work that East Side Stewards is doing, we want to be able to connect housing with energy, with food, with clean water, with community events, with service events, with opportunities to learn and grow. And I think that it may be a big task to take on, but it's important that when we're doing this work that we look at the full human and all the things that they need in order to live out a good life. So definitely a holistic approach.
I agree. If you don't have the access to housing, how can you have the ability to have a good quality of healthcare? And then your healthcare is wailing. not doing well. You're gonna maybe have educational issues because you can't keep up in school. So everything always interconnects with one another. And I'm a firm believer of being holistic, addressing issues in a holistic approach, not just in silos as well. Yeah, I agree. How do you incorporate community voice into project design, especially in neighborhoods that have experienced generational disinvestment? And you're doing this like right now in real time. So, what have you found as your best tactics to do this work?
The best tactics that we found to do community oriented work has definitely been incorporating community input, whether it be from folks coming out to a service event or we going out to door knock, but doing a community needs assessment and also an asset based community development approach where we're incorporating, like you said, in real time, what our community needs, what do they want to see out of the green spaces that we're revitalizing. Is it that they want more food production, or is it that they want a free seeds library? Do they want a playground? Is this lot in their community being underutilized and they want to see a small business market there? It's truly understanding what communities need. And I think that because we inherently know what we want for our neighborhoods, it's important to use that input to directly come at this work.
Yep, I agree. And how do you handle resistance, whether it be from government, municipalities, private developers, not-for-profit developers, or even the community in itself, right? Because I think that at some points in time, speaking as a developer, speaking as somebody who does this work in the community as well, to build commercial and residential, sometimes you're trying to do this work in a community that's been disenfranchised for so long, generations, that they don't know who to trust. And then their distrust, their trauma has been so long and lingering for such a period of time that they may even go against something that they know is beneficial for them, but because they just have this traumatic response to it, they can't see past it and they don't know what it is good for them. How do you handle that in your work?
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head. I think that people for so long haven't been able to access things in their community that are beneficial. That I recently learned a new word or phrase called civic imagination. So, and being traumatized and being from disinvested communities, you start to lose hope and that ability to imagine what your community could look like if everyone came together and organized around certain issues or around building a certain thing. And I think that part of it is like, as an organizer, you have to be able to restore that hope, restore that ability to dream for what your community could be like in the future. And I think that by leading by example and then bringing folks into the work, not just doing it in a silo, but incorporating the input of folks and working with them to build out how that could look like. I have different forms of engagement that allow people who have different forms of learning to be able to contribute, or folks of different reading levels and literacy to be able to come into the conversation. I think on the other end of developers and other larger nonprofits, it has been a struggle to be able to gain legitimacy or respect in what we're doing because we're young folks who have a vision for the future, and that sometimes could be a threat to what a housing developer is doing or what a large nonprofit has in mind for a certain community. But I think that it's important to have conversations with those folks. Like I spoke to the executive director of Habitat for Humanity Buffalo and had a down to heart conversation where we talked about how does it look like for them to continue to do amazing and phenomenal work in building housing, but also for there to be the intentionality in building out other community assets. We also need food. We also need energy that doesn't come at the cost of our health. We also need facilities that are affordable and accessible. We also need education. There are so many other things that could that a vacant lot that's abundant throughout the East Side could be. And I think that bringing folks to the table and just earning that respect through those conversations, through showing up and people seeing you do the work every day, I think that has been successful. And us being able to build trust with the community and with other stakeholders.
I like that. Definitely, you are doing your homework. Like I said, this is the man who is out in the community doing the real work, and you can speak to it not in just a theoretical sense. You can speak to it in the real world expense, the real world experience of it. So, thank you. Who are your most important collaborators right now? So you spoke about all these different sectors and groups that you're working with. Out of all of these groups, who are the most important right now, and how do those relationships push your mission forward? And it could be temporary, right? Like you could be working on a specific project, and this is where you're at the current moment on this project. However, when you go to like post construction or post project delivery, you might need to focus in on a different group. So I think the audience should also recognize and be aware that this ebbs and flows. This isn't just a constant. This definitely changes over time within your projects and where you're at within your projects.
Yeah. I think the most important partners in this work, we value all our community partners and all the hard work that they do to help that connect. I think organizations that are working with us to help bring youth into the fold to be able to participate in different programs. Service learning is our bread and butter. So being able to work with community members to build out a garden bed or to help build out the urban farm that we've been contracted to do with CAO and bringing more folks into the work that we're doing, I think, is the most beneficial to us as an organization. As it allows us to show the efficacy of our work, but also just show the community and other stakeholders how vital the work of revitalizing neglected spaces or building out community assets are on the east side of Buffalo.
Powerful. And if you could design the perfect ecosystem of organizations, leaders, and funders to support your work, what would that look like?
I would say that the idea that I try to operate out of is abundance. So, as many community partners, as many funders, as many residents are involved in the work that we're doing, being able to donate to the organization or provide a grant for a community program for green workforce development, for us to be able to have dozens of vacant lots across the east side connected as a development zone, a green development zone on the east side, and that holistic, providing all the different resources that the community members that we are working with need at all the different sites that we're operating at. I think that would be an amazing, bright future for the organization.
Nice. And how do you measure impact in this work? Because you're doing a lot for the community, from the community, of the community. How are you measuring it? Is it based on data? Are you using qualitative approach with narratives and stories, quantitative approach with the data? What does that look like?
We try to infuse both quantitative and qualitative data, like how much food are we producing at a certain site? How many residents are we engaging in volunteer opportunities? How many youth have engaged in a certain program? But also, like when we're doing those community needs assessments or going out on outreach, using those oral histories and feedback to better understand not just the numbers, but also what is the sentiment or what is the feeling behind the work that we're doing for residents.
Nice. I know the funders love that. Right? They want to see for the viewers and everyone out there, if you are aspiring to create a not for profit, oftentimes a lot of people are looking for grants. And when they are applying for grants, they are going to ask the quantitative how many people you're serving, what's the numbers, where have you done it at, etc. Even the square footage, likewise. And then it also helps when you could put that story to it, because it could have been maybe a smaller project in scope of size. However, it might have had a greater impact. And if you can tell that narrative, then now you're creating a mixed methods approach for all my MPAs out there, Masters in Public Administrators. Mixed methods approach is definitely where it's at. It's one of my favorite strategies because it has both. But I digress. What's a result you're especially proud of? One that reminds you this work matters. So it could have been something that was like so super overwhelming and you were still able to achieve it, or it could just be something that it went so smooth and so well that I was like, wow, this is really where it's at. This is why I do this. Or it could be both.
I really think it's just seeing us create this from scratch. And then when we do outreach or when we're hosting an event, like hearing how people are, how well of a response we're getting from folks. Just like if we're hosting like a stewardship Saturday where we're at the CS53 community garden, people in the community, when they walk by, just saying, keep doing what you're doing great work. I think that for me means everything, because people, even though it's my passion and I want to bring this into the community and make it as the greatest impact that we can have. Just hearing from people how much they appreciate the work that we're doing and seeing that hard work, I think really hits deep.
Yeah, that's real because people don't. Oftentimes, they see the result of a project and the ribbon cutting and congratulations and everybody's outside, but they don't see the countless nights of you being up, putting the work together, the headaches, the navigation of the politics of it all, trying to make sure you get the right work done and also make sure that you're able to do this for a long time, not just a short time. So I think that when, to your point, when you see the people that it's specifically designed for benefiting from it and happy, that's a really good sign for sure. So kudos to you again on doing this work, man. It's inspirational. I tell you. What's your vision for the future of urban development in places like Buffalo, Detroit, even the Bronx now? There's a lot of development that's happening nationally. Real estate is just taking off, especially in urban centers and spreading into markets right outside of those urban centers. What do you feel for those core cities in the Midwest? What do you feel like the development is going to happen for them? What's the future of that?
I think especially through what we're trying to promote and encourage, is urban development that doesn't come at the cost of displacing existing residents or erasing the culture that exists within a place. I think for too long, Buffalo's leadership has been very receptive to wealthy developers trying to put in market value housing or a large commercial area or an office building, but has turned a blind eye to grassroots organizations, community organizations, cooperatives that have been trying to reclaim land to be as equitable as possible in how we're promoting land ownership for people that have put in sweat equity for decades through their family lineage of building communities. It's important that it's just not money that talks, but hard work, work ethic, innovation, and us being able to galvanize support for the work that we're doing. Like our organization, we may not have $500,000 to build on a 1 acre lot, but we have shown time and time again that we are committed to this work and that we can build out projects that have immense community benefit. I think it's time for us to stop investing billions of dollars into these huge projects that don't have any type of benefit, community benefits tied to them. And they're just continuing to make wealthy developers more wealthy. It's time for community projects for smaller developers, for POC developers to be able to have opportunities to have their vision and manifestation for the future realized.
Respect that. That sounds like a lot of transparency and accountability.
100%.
Sounds like we're creating a lot. Yeah, yeah, and ain't nothing wrong with that, especially when you're using public dollars to fund a project that otherwise you wouldn't, as a developer, been able to afford. You definitely want to have community transparency and accountability in doing this work because it ain't moving. It's gonna stay here, and the goal is that the people that are living there, to your point, again, the natives, we want to make sure that they're also benefiting from it too. So it's gotta work both ways. And I think that it would behoove a developer to have a conversation with you before they start to do a project, right? Because you know the people, you are of the community, you're doing the work in the community, and a developer can really get a better design because the goal is to be profitable. So you don't want to just build something, spend all this money and time, build something, and then that project is now not returning a profit, and now your investors and lender are hounding you because this project is not yielding that return. I 100% agree that there's that transparency and accountability is not to put chains on anybody or be oppressive to towards any one side. It's more so to make sure that everybody rises together. So for sure. I have a few more questions for you. This is great, and I think this one you alluded to the youth, so I wanted to bring this out. What role do what role does the youth play in your projects, and what messages would you give a young person who wants to be a change maker in their neighborhood?
I would say that youth play an immense role in all they do. And just thinking about the sustainability of the organization, like you were saying, like what is this organization going to look like 10, 20, 30, 40 years down the line if we ever hope to be sustainable and have longevity? We have to be able to train the youth and get the youth invested in this work as well. Again, they're inheriting the climate change, economic, and fiscal problems that we're experiencing. All of these different issues that exist within our society are going to be held dealt down to them. And I think that incorporating their input is everything. And what I would say to get young people on board um, and invested in doing this is that if you truly want to see a future that is designed with your passion, your perspective, your vision for the future, you have to participate in it. It may seem daunting to get started. I mean, many young folks feel like, oh, they don't have enough experience, or they don't know the right people, or they don't have the funds to bring a project to life. I would say that even within the work that I've been doing, I started with little to nothing, with a couple people interested in in this work. I mean, you can turn something very small into something that has immense impact. Um, so I would say forget about what limits you and focus more on what drives you.
Forget the limitations, focus on the drive. Love that. Woo! Powerful, brother. This is great. This is great. So we want to do some rapid fire, if we may. Quick answers only. So we really don't want you to think about it. We just want you to. I'm gonna give you the question. Just first thing that comes to mind. So it ain't no right or wrong answers. We ain't gonna hold you accountable, but we just want to get these rapid fires in for
I'm
you.
ready.
You ready? All right. So favorite community space you help create.
CS53 Community Garden and Outdoor Learning Lab.
Okay. Nice. A book that changed your mindset.
Touching Spirit Beer.
Okay. Nice. Most underrated part of the development process.
Community engagement.
One thing every city should stop doing today.
Billion dollar investments.
Okay. And legacy in one word.
Being true and authentic to yourself.
Okay, that's a few words, but we'll give you that. It's a rapid fire, so I can't hold you accountable to that. This was powerful, man. Thank you for showing us the that community development is not just about buildings, it's about belonging. Before we close, how can people support you and your work that you're doing and stay connected with you and your
Yeah,
mission?
if you visit eastsidestewards.com, we have all the information about our organization and how you can get involved, become a volunteer, become a community partner, sponsor an event, become a donor, and just stay involved in what we're doing. We hope that you can join us, Eastside Stewards, on all social media. Truly grateful for this opportunity.
Oh man, thank you. Thank you for being on the channel. To my viewers out there, we're definitely all about building generational wealth through real estate, whether it be home ownership, whether it be business, investing, etc. As we're doing our work in the real estate industry, from loan officer, agent, developer, community not-for-profit director, bankers, branch managers, etc. Anybody that touches this, attorneys, anybody that touches the work, appraisers, inspectors, we got to have a purpose as to why we're doing the work that we're doing. And I just again want to thank for joining us today, talking about the passion that the work that he does, why he does it, and how successful he is, man. And I'm looking very much forward to the work that you're doing, not only here in Buffalo, but that I know you will be doing worldwide. So again, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. We're gonna put all the Tendaji's contact information below in the description. Please look out for his channel and his Facebook and social media handles. And remember, better living starts with better building. I'm Paul Perez. See you next time. Peace.